So in this video, I'm going to be discussing the supposed rape culture in the West. And who better to kick this off than a feminist?
I find that people use this argument a lot when discussing rape culture, and actually they don't quite know what the discussion is about. I want to handle this the right way because feminism supports all victims of rape. But in the context of why your argument sucks, we are fully aware that men get raped too. We are not ignorant. What we were actually discussing was rape culture, so not the act itself.
So basically you're not actually discussing rape. You're discussing something else other than rape.
Rape culture is when you ask victims what they were wearing. Were they flirting beforehand? Asking if they possibly had too much to drink. Whilst anyone can get raped, rape culture predominantly affects women.
Okay, so aside from this being a bit of a straw man here on people who are actually trying to give good prevention advice, advice to help people mitigate their chances of being raped, I really don't see too much else of that. Take for example, how much you had to drink. Well, a good option to prevent yourself from being a victim of any crime, really, not just rape, is sobriety. When you're drunk, your conscious level is down, your judgment goes out the window. That's just a fact. And when you're talking about a rapist is going to take, just like any other predator, is going to take the easy victim. It's just like, a dude who gets drunk and gets the shit kicked out of him and his money stolen off him out in public. Criminals, when they have an option, they're going to target the drunk dude over the sober dude for obvious reasons. Consciousness is down. The odds of them remembering and being able to accurately identify the perpetrator goes a lot further down. Their reaction time goes down. Everything goes down. There is no advantage to being drunk when it comes to protecting yourself. On the flirtation part, no, I don't believe that just because somebody's a little flirty out in public means that they were asking for rape. However, if you're talking about somebody who's given the other person every indicator that they're consenting to the act, but, you're not, well, whose fault is that? If you've let somebody know, if you've given somebody consent, every indicator that you're intending to consent, but never really don't consent throughout the entire process, well, whose fault is that, And what I'm trying to get out here is don't give consent if you didn't really want to. That's the only thing I could think of to respond to that. Alright.
Men do not get asked if they were showing too much skin.
You're right. In cases when it's a male being raped, most of the time, instead of having some serious questions about that, it's more likely to be disregarded or laughed off or not taken near as seriously. If you want to look at some of the statutory rape cases between, the teachers and the students, oftentimes, if the female teacher gets any punishment, it's just a slap on the wrist.
Rape culture is currently ingrained in society. There are people that would never rape anybody, but sometimes their actions and sometimes their words might contribute towards rape culture. Here's how...
Alright, so the idea we have a rape culture in the West is absurd. Just off the top of my head, the penalties for most sexual assaults in Texas, most sexual assaults in Texas, my home state, are second-degree felonies and carry prison sentences up to 20 years. And if you're talking about aggravated sexual assault or, rape, it's a first-degree felony in Texas that carries a penalty of 5 to 99 years. So by no means does society consider the act of rape itself a laughing matter. At least in the case where a woman's forcibly raped. Even the drugging, the date rape, that's a serious crime too. This is what you're talking about here. Now, when you're talking about what apparently this feminist is talking about, this feminist is taking tips to prevent rape and tying it to the coattails of an act that, quite frankly, we consider abhorrent. And she's already said, I'll play it again.
Discussing was rape culture, so not the act itself.
Okay, so, again, you actually admit you're not talking about the act itself. But what you are doing is taking other acts, other well-intentioned, and actually pretty good advice, and connotating that with a heinous crime. If you don't see a problem with that, then, you're pretty far gone. And the second thing you do with that is you eventually dilute the word rape. You dilute it to be connotated with stuff such as don't go out, and get too drunk, to mitigate your chances of being raped. Don't go walking down a dark alley at night alone, drunk off your ass, to mitigate your chances of rape. You see where your problem is. You see where what you're doing is kind of counterproductive when it comes to actually helping real rape victims now. Of course not. And I have a problem with stolen valor fucks. I have a problem with people who want to pretend like they were in the service and lie to everybody else like they were in the service when they really weren't. On the same note, it pisses me off when somebody's going around throwing that word stolen valor out without even checking to see if the person they're accusing of stolen valor is actually stolen valor, or doing it based off flimsy evidence. Pretty much the same reason why I do not like it when people throw the word rape out, pretty much on the same pretenses. You see, if it's something serious, you shouldn't be diluting the meaning of it, which is, again, what these people will go around throwing stolen valor out, without any evidence, on that. Just the same as people make false accusations of rape. Just the same with rape culture feminists. See, they dilute the meaning of a serious, or what should be a serious accusation.
Men can get raped too. I can't stand this argument. You have to be a certain level of horrible to pit victims against each other, whatever gender. Also,
yeah, this person clearly doesn't have an answer to that. This person, just like all feminists, don't really have an answer to that. And the only thing that they can do in that case is accuse the very same people who bring this topic up of, quote, pitting victims against one another. Again, something to bear in mind when you're thinking and when you're discussing the issue of rape with one of these rape culture feminists.
your argument wouldn't suck. Every single rape prevention tip is geared towards people being in charge of not getting raped, not teaching rapists not to rape.
Okay, so not only did you just show the mark of a totalitarian there, i.e., if you don't accept our narrative and you don't agree with us, you're part of the problem, but you've also shown that you're not grounded very much in reality. You see, the penalties for rape in many states can carry up to life imprisonment. And if that alone isn't a hint to somebody not to rape, then there is no convincing this person not to rape. It's just like in Texas. We have the death penalty here for murder still. Yet we still have some people that choose to commit that act anyway. And there is no teaching them not to murder. We live in an imperfect world. Something that feminism has yet to grasp.
So there's the big problem. The other problem in that is that most of these tips are aimed at women. With colour changing nail varnish, for example. There needs to be more done to prevent rape for everybody.
Alright, I'm in favor of people taking the steps that they need to take, things that they can do to protect themselves from being a victim of a crime. I'm in favor of somebody who chooses not to go down a dark alley alone at night, as a step to mitigate their chances of being a victim of a crime. I'm in favor of somebody locking their doors, even when they are at home, to mitigate their chances of being a victim of a crime. I'm in favor of concealed carry. It's nice to have the tools necessary to protect yourself from being a victim of a crime should that situation come up. I'm opposed to government interventions on that specifically prevent law-abiding citizens from carrying concealed when they need to. What I'm not in favor of is use of utopian fantasy to try to stop real crimes, i.e., somehow thinking that you're going to change somebody's mind from committing a crime that carries up to life imprisonment for. Because you're just not being realistic there. I do believe in prosecuting these people, yes. But I don't believe that you're going to stop rape by presupposing all men out to be rapists. And I don't think that no matter how many feminist brainwashing classes you give, you're going to stop the act of rape. We don't live in a perfect world, and it's unjust to presuppose all men as rapists, until proven otherwise. And if you want to keep on carrying this mentality down, you're going to have more and more articles like this one come up. And this is what rape culture feminism is going to accomplish. That's all it's going to accomplish. You're not going to deter the guy who's going to commit a crime that you face up to life in prison for. If he was going to be deterred by anything, it would be that life in prison sentence. What you are going to accomplish is you are going to make more and more guys feel more and more uncomfortable with romantically engaging with members of the opposite sex for fear of being labeled a rapist. I mean, think about all the guys who've been falsely accused of rape. People such as the Duke lacrosse players. Guys like the one that mattress girl falsely accused of rape. How do you think that they are going to deal in future interactions with women? Do you think they're going to be more likely to try to get into a romantic entanglement with them? Or do you think they're going to be less likely to do so for fear of being labeled a rapist?
That's just my opinion. Before any argument, you're going to have to show that you know what you're talking about before your opinion is valid.
That's really rich coming from an ideology that still supports the debunked pay gap. That's rich coming from an ideology that touts studies that claim that 1 in 6, 1 in 5, 1 in 4 women are raped, and then they include what's, raped, as being, having a drink or two before sex. Yeah, that's really rich coming from you.
I can tell you that I think socks have emotions. That's just my opinion. It doesn't make it true. Most of the time this has been used because you said your piece, somebody else has come back with personal experience or references, or anything really, and because...
Okay, so anything really, that's the key words on this one. Just because you've managed to blitz somebody who hasn't done much research on the issue, if any, or the average person who doesn't really think of these things, doesn't mean you've won. All it does is it means you've just taken advantage of an ignorant person. Now, and don't get me wrong, I don't particularly care for people who want to stay ignorant either. However, just because, they're ignorant of this topic and haven't really done the research doesn't mean that you're automatically right either. But don't worry, feminists aren't the only people who do the whole ignorance blitzing thing. Gun control advocates are very well renowned for doing this. Example, when Obama was addressing the issue of gun violence in Chicago, he blamed the Indiana gun laws on this. What he failed to mention was that if you're an Illinois resident, you can't legally go into Indiana and buy a firearm. Sorry. Combination of federal and state laws prohibit that. So if I was an Indiana resident, I couldn't sell this rifle to somebody who's an Illinois resident, right? That would be illegal. A felony would have been committed on both of our parts. Mine for selling him the firearm and his for accepting the firearm. Hell, I can't give this rifle to my brother who's a California resident. It's illegal. It's already illegal. I've got a brother who's a resident of Minnesota. I can't give him this pistol. That's a violation of federal law on both of our parts, mine for giving it to him and his for accepting it. Hell, if I'm an Illinois resident, I can't go to a gun store in Indiana and purchase one of these. Right? It's already illegal. And just, because a gun control advocate went and blitzed somebody who didn't know the law and said, well, you see, you really need to support our side now for more gun laws. Doesn't make what they did right. In fact, it makes what they did downright sneaky and dishonest. Either way you put it.
Because your argument doesn't extend past that's that, then you swiftly state that is your made-up opinion.
No, it's better to make up studies that support your position first, right? Ignoring all the other empirical data that would show otherwise.
Instead of saying that's just your opinion, try saying, I thought of this, but I'm not going to do any research on this because I feel like I am right.
Yeah, you know what? The thing is with feminists, it doesn't matter how many facts you put at them. Wage gap feminists, doesn't matter how many DOL statistics you put at them showing that, that number they came to was a faulty number. It didn't take into account different career choices. It doesn't matter how many DOL statistics you put at them. They're still going to quote that. Just like rape culture feminists, you're not changing their opinion with any empirical data either.
Please do your research because without it, no one has a leg to stand on.
Yeah, you know what, feminist? That's some good advice for you to follow, Because it sounds to me like you rape culture feminists haven't done your research either, and all you've got left to do is straw man people.
All men If we're discussing something about men and it's not something that you have particularly done, then that's great. The reason...
Well, great, here's the thing. Not a vast majority, not a simple majority, not a major minority even, of us are rapists. And in fact, it's only a small sliver of either gender that are actually rapists. So perhaps you can stop putting us in as all potential rapists. Most of us men would greatly appreciate that.
Why your argument sucks is because you have to understand that many men have done this. A majority...
Yeah, it didn't take you very long to throw your advice of do your research before you comment out the window. No, many men have not committed rapes. In fact, if you look at the total number of men in existence versus the total number of men who committed rapes, it's a very small number. And when we catch the men that committed the rapes, we prosecute them. They are forever hated for that act. So the rest of us would kindly appreciate you not lump us in as rapist or potential rapist when we have not committed that act.
Even. It's always sucky to have to acknowledge that something that you're a part of has bad bits, but that's just life.
You see, and you wonder where feminism gets the man-hate reputation from. It's statements like these right here. You see, you're willing to dump rape as a responsibility of men on men because only a small sliver of men have committed a rape. But it's somehow, all of men's fault, But yet I don't hear feminists celebrating all the good things we have in life because of men. That building you're living in right now, that you're filming from right now, guarantee you, was built and designed by men. Sure, you probably had one or two women in there doing the interior designing, and you might have had one or two female construction workers on the project, but I guarantee you that building was built primarily by men. Men dominate the construction field. You want to talk about where you get your food from? Well, men dominate that too. It's ranching and farming are primarily done by men. You want to talk about how the food got from the farm to your supermarket? Well, commercial driving is dominated by men too, by a great deal. You want to talk about the internet you're on, primarily designed and built by men. You want to talk about all the other goodies you got, like the roads, the infrastructure, primarily done by men. Very few women have participated in building those roads or designing them. You don't hear feminists celebrating all the wonderful things they have in life because of men. But you do hear feminists talk about things like rape culture and all the bad things that some men have done. So even if we were willing to accept a collective responsibility for stuff like rape, feminists would never, ever acknowledge all the wonderful things that men have done for them.
So stop driving conversations back to you because it's not about you. This argument...
Let's see. Don't teach women to protect themselves. Teach men not to rape. He for she. Kill all men. I bathe in male tears. Gee, if it wasn't about man hate or about men, you sure put men in there a lot for it to not be about us.
It gets used a lot when women do things to protect themselves and are a bit defensive. As we mentioned earlier, rape is up to us to stop.
Right. Nobody save feminists are actually doing anything to discourage you from taking the proper and real steps you need to take to protect yourself. Now, on the other hand, if you want to be paranoid of men, you know, and you want to label them as all potential rapists, don't be shocked when they stop having stuff to do with you. You know? Don't be shocked when you're sitting there in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, you know, I don't know why I can't find a good man. You know, don't be shocked, you know, and I've had feminists that have sat there and told me this in the past. I don't know why, you know, a lot of men don't trust women nowadays. Don't be shocked when that stuff happens. You know, if you're going to follow the feminist narrative, don't be shocked when that's what it gets you.
And that's when they say, but not all men. Like, you may not be a rapist, but you've got to acknowledge why women do certain things to protect themselves.
You see, nobody's opposed to women taking steps to protect themselves from being rape victims. Well, save a few people, but they're mainly feminists. You know, I'm not opposed. In fact, I encourage a woman that wants to protect herself from being a victim of crime, to include rape. I encourage them to consider concealed carry. I encourage them to not get so blitzed in public that they can't tell whether they're coming or going. And, you know, in fact, I encourage that of all people. Same for concealed carry. I encourage people to be aware of their surroundings. I encourage people to lock their doors even when they are at home. You know, and these are basic, reasonable steps that people will take to protect themselves. You know, what I'm against, and what the majority of us who are against rape culture feminism are against, are throwing out the standards of due process. You know, we're against the idea of an accusation equals guilt. You know, we are against the idea of accusing all men of being rapists, or considering all men to be potential rapists. There you have it.
You can't take these actions personally because there is a much bigger picture than you.
Yeah, and guess what, feminists? There's a much bigger picture than you too. When you advocate for things such as throwing out due process, you advocate for things such as an accusation, you know, automatically means guilt when it comes to rape, and that sort of thing. Yeah, I do have an issue with that, and I think most reasonable people do have an issue with that.
The thing with all these arguments against feminism is that if you wanted to have a proper discussion about it, you would have Googled it and done your research, but you didn't, which makes you an arse.
Or the fact of the matter is that they just might have, and they see what people like you, Jessica Valenti, and all the other feminists have to say, and we realize that, hey, you're bonkers. That what you're saying doesn't make any sense, or what you're saying goes against the tenets of a free society, and we're just not willing to accept that, especially when you have incidents like this one I'm about to show you. And I've already done a video response to the whole incident, but there is one point I want to take out in this video here and show you my point.
I tried to get out several times of that room, okay? I tried so much, I tried so hard, I screamed, and nothing stopped him. That was not my fault. That was not my fault, okay? I didn't press charges against him, I didn't ruin someone else's life because maybe...
Okay. Notice how she said she didn't prosecute. This is what she should have done. First thing, when you're raped, first chance you get, you need to get to the hospital. You need to tell them what happened so you can get the proper treatment, let them collect the evidence, and press charges. They collect the physical evidence, that's going to go a lot further in court than you waiting on it 6 months and then telling the police. With the physical evidence, Now you have something real to prosecute the person on and take this rapist off the street. And if you're not willing to do that, don't tell me how far you're willing to go to stop rape. All right. This is about all I've had on this particular topic for now. Y'all take her easy.